Welcome back to episode 3 of What the Fundraising. I'm your host, Mallory Erickson, and this podcast is for impact leaders and change makers who are looking to fundamentally change the way they fundraise. Today, I'm interviewing Tamika Felder, who is an amazing patient advocate, award-winning television producer and host, international speaker, and an author. After a diagnosis of cervical cancer in 2001 at the age of 25, Tamika has dedicated her life and her voice to help educate other women about the ways to prevent cervical cancer. She's the Chief Visionary Officer at Survivor with a C, a nonprofit dedicated to cervical cancer advocacy and support. Tamika is also the author of Seriously, What Are You Waiting For? 13 Ways to Ignite Your Life and Achieve the Ultimate Comeback. One of the things you will notice about Tamika immediately is her energy, right? She is a positive, magnetic force. The first time we ever talked, I was rolling, laughing, and totally energized. We're going to talk about energy today, how to harness it, how to put boundaries up with it. And this is such an important conversation for nonprofit leaders because we talk about how to deal with tough moments that Tamika is very familiar with, but how to overcome them without creating a story that actually creates long-term limiting beliefs. With my clients, I see all the time the way they are dragged down by narratives created from one experience, right? No more. That is negatively impacting their and likely your ability to lead and fundraise. We're going to talk about how you deal with all of that today. So let's dive in so you can soak up this good energy right now. Hi, and welcome. I am here with Tamika Felder. I am so excited for this conversation today. Tamika, I have been inspired by you for a long time. I can't remember. I was trying to remember exactly when I found out about you or started following you, but I feel like the first time I did, I just gravitated towards you. And I was just like, her. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. I feel the same way. So I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, I know you, but why don't you just start by telling everyone a little bit about you and your story and sort of what brings you to this moment in time?
So, hey, y'all, I'm from South Carolina, so I do say y'all, but hello, everyone. I'm Tamika, and I am someone who had dreams as a kid, and I'm living them out loud every single day. So my story is that I was working as a television producer, and it's just been a dream of mine my entire life. And then when I was 25 years old in 2001, cancer came in and just really knocked me off of my feet and changed everything. So being diagnosed with cervical cancer at 25, I lost my fertility. And I wasn't planning to be a mom anytime soon, but it was definitely something that I thought about. I think a lot of young girls or people dream about, when they are playing with their dolls and they think about one day I'll have this real baby and all this other stuff. So cervical cancer really took that away from me. But I've always been a resilient person. And so even though this traumatic thing happened to me at such an early age, I was like, let me pick up the pieces, put them back together, and just keep moving forward. And of course, that's easier said than done. But one thing about me, I always actively work towards whatever I need to do or where I need to be. And along the way, I founded a nonprofit, Survivor, because I felt so alone and I didn't want anyone else to feel that way because of the stigma and shame of cervical cancer, because of its attachment to the human papillomavirus. And as a storyteller, I just really wanted to shift that narrative. I didn't want to change the truth about the cancer, but I wanted to shift the narrative and show faces and people who've experienced this. So you see, one, it can happen to anyone, and two, it wasn't an easy cancer. Like, you couldn't just get a hysterectomy or have treatment and you're done. It's one thing to experience the physical aspect of cancer or anything really, but it's another thing to have to deal with the emotional part of it. So silly me, I thought, I'm done with treatment. I'm healed from my surgery. And I'm just going to pick up the pieces of my life right before cancer, right? That didn't happen. And so a lot of what I've started doing is helping people, not just with cancer, but with anything that's holding them back, move forward, because we only get this one life. Coming face first with my mortality, you wake up and you realize like none of us are getting out of here alive. Like death is imminent. It's so just not something that we want to talk about. But the truth is none of us are getting out here alive. And so what do we do with that time that we have here? So you can exist, right? You can just exist. And if that's your jam and you're totally fine with that, that is okay. But if you have things that you want to do before you leave this place, right? Whether you believe in a place that we're all going, or some of us going someplace else, or you believe that we turn to dust and we're just ashes, whatever it is, it's over, right? Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do with this time while we have this one body to live this life? And I always say, you can live an epic life and jump out of a plane or do whatever you want, or you can be the best Netflix and chill type of person, because life is whatever it is on your terms. And a lot of people are seeking permission. And for some things, I seek permission too. And so I'm constantly telling myself and sharing with other people that you don't have to seek permission. You can go and be the things and do the things realistically, of course, but don't wait, because seriously, if you're waiting, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. A quote from that I played upon a little bit from Lemony Snicket's. But you really do have to do the things. And so it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be the perfect time. It's never going to be perfect financially. And if it is, awesome. But in most cases, everything is just not going to line up perfectly. And so you have to decide, do I do it now and kind of, shift things a little bit so I can still do it. And maybe I won't do it the same way that I had always dreamed about, but maybe you do it and you get to check that thing off of your box, right? Off of your bucket list or your living life list, if you will, and you go forth and you do. And so I wear a lot of hats. So I'm your cheerleader. I'm not a fear leader. I'm also, a nonprofit leader. I am an author and a speaker. But at the core of who I am, I'm a girl with dreams, and I will be going after those dreams until the day I die. That's who I am at my core.
Oh my God. And I'm just tearing up a little bit over here, like listening to you talk about all of that. And I'm curious, like before you dealt with cancer, before that came into your life, what were some of the things that you felt like were really holding you back, or what were the stories at play there?
So a lot of the things that I felt like were holding me back was, so working in the media world and broadcasting, it's all about looks, right? It's all about physical. So I've never hated how I looked, and I've always been a confident person, but being in a profession where you always have to be on, you're constantly looking at the way you look, the way that you present yourself. And so, when I left South Carolina and moved to DC, it's when I saw the shift that people didn't have to be a certain cookie cutter to be on television. And, there's all this body positivity now, and it should have been there forever, but it wasn't. And so I love what's going on. And if you're body conscious and body positive, it doesn't mean that you're unhealthy or you care about being unhealthy. It's loving the skin while you're in now. So one of the stories that we all tell ourselves is, when I'm thinner or when I do this, I'll do that, right? And that is one of the things that we have to stop letting hold us back. I always tell people, like, travel now. Don't wait till, you're small to do whatever. I mean, there's some things you can't do. So if you are over 300 pounds, you can't go to iFly or something like that, but, find some other place, or you can't go ziplining. I remember when I wanted to go ziplining, that was one of the things I was like, I bet I can't go because I'm over 300 pounds, which I'm under now. So that is definitely back on the list. But it's okay. So I can't go ziplining. What's something else that I can do to kind of get that kind of zip lining feel and do these other things. And so that really is part of what I love to share with people, is that being the size that I am, I've never really let it hold me back from doing anything. You had to get a seatbelt extender on a plane. Can it be embarrassing? Have I ever felt embarrassed about it? Yes. And usually it's because other people made me feel embarrassed. Sometimes, flight attendants, they fold it up all nice. I'm always like swinging it around and, like walking on the aisle, like, here's my, seat belt extender and what. And for people who are like, well, I don't want someone taking part of my seat. Dude, I don't want to take your seat either. I want to fit in my seat. But that's a whole thing with, again, planes and restrictions and things like that. People don't come in a cookie cutter size. People don't come in cookie cutter personalities. And so, yes, there are things in life. There are things that we tell us. We tell ourselves that we're not worthy. We're not smart enough. We're not cultured enough. We don't have enough people that we're connected to achieve our goals. And so we start telling ourselves the story. And a lot of it is because of what we see, or perhaps we feel that we're not pretty because our hair isn't straight enough, or our skin isn't light enough, or our booties are too flat, or whatever. We get caught up in a lot of this. So a lot of what I do when I first start working with people, I ask them, tell me something that you love about yourself. Sometimes I'll start with a like. Tell me something that you like about yourself. And, there's some people that are like, oh, I love this, I love that. But there are always people that are like, can you come back to me? I don't know. And it's amazing to me that we are in these bodies, these vessels that we get, right? That are uniquely us. No one else has them unless you're, a twin, right? So you have someone else, right? But even then there's little differences, right? But we have to love ourselves. One day, this woman who was really on body positivity well before her time, I remember I said something about my belly and my thighs, and especially because I had over 100 staples. And you can still see every little staple because they kind of keloid. And I know your audience is probably like TMI, but I'm a TMI kind of girl.
No, me too. So they are right at home.
Yes, there's someone listening to this and they need to hear this. And they're like, okay, so my message is for everyone, but there's always that one or two people that need to hear this. And so I remember telling her, and we're just girlfriends having casual conversation. And I was just like, yeah, because my belly, something, something, something. And I was like, yeah, when it gets smaller or when it does this. And she just like, matter of fact said, but why would you wait to love yourself when it's a part of you? And I thought, yeah, I can't hate myself. I love myself. I love all of me. And so, yeah, are there things that I want to improve about myself? Absolutely. But I love me, every inch of me. I am uniquely me. Everything about me is what makes me me. And so I can't hate myself, but we're taught to hate ourselves. We're taught to dislike ourselves. We're taught to constantly improve on who we are. And so there is some truth to that, right? So I feel like we should constantly be evolving to be better versions of ourselves, but not necessarily physically, just better humans in the world, because we all make up this wonderful world that we're in. So your uniqueness matters, right? So we shouldn't be the same. Our uniqueness matters. But what should be the same is that we want to be good humans and we want to be a part of this good that is in this world. So a lot of what I want people to really, truly understand is own who you are, right? Own your uniqueness, own, who you are. And I feel like that's what's missing from a lot of people, that they don't own who they are because they're looking at reality shows or Instagram and looking for something that may be Instagrammable, and we need to start loving who we are and loving. People used to tell me that, oh my God, you talk too much. I remember on my second grade report card, and I still have it, and I pull it out. And it's funny because there's this meme that says like, here's to all the girls who talk too much in class. And I'm like, hello, that's me. And now I'm paid as a speaker. So, my mother, when she was alive, she just laughed her butt off about that, because she was always like, be quiet, good Southern woman, like, shh, shh, shh. And I'm just like, and she would laugh. She was like, I cannot believe you get paid to just run your mouth for a living. Like, here I am with you, just gabbing away, running my trap.
I love it. But you know what? It's such a good point that like, that's only possible because you embraced all of you, right? You didn't sit there saying, I need to be quieter, just like so-and-so, you're like, okay, this is me. I talk a lot. So like, how can what does that mean for my life? I love sharing my story. I love talking. So what does that look like for me? And there was something else that you said that just really triggered a thought in me. And now I'm forgetting exactly what it was. But, I think what's so beautiful about what you talk about, and like, I'm someone where like, God, if I could go back and like redo anything from high school, it would be like, get in that bathing suit, get in the lake, get in the whatever, like the amount of things I didn't do in my life because of my body is crazy. Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is like, you are inspiring people, you're a teacher, but a lot of what you're doing is like unteaching. It's like, listen, you were born exactly how you were meant to be. You've been told all these lies about that not being good enough, or that not being right, or that not fitting into this box. And now it's time to like unteach that, right? To like rewind those limiting beliefs.
I mean, and what you said is so true because, I always tell people, if I get a moment before I'm out of here, like, if something happens and your life flashes before you, you want to feel good about it. You want to be like, okay, all right, fine, I'll go. It was good. You want to be like, oh my God, I haven't done this, or I still want to see this. I want to taste this. I want to try it. My husband put one of the cars to be serviced. So he had to take it to the shop. I ended up having to pick it up. And there was this person who was there. He's the person that checked me out, and he was from Korea. And somehow we started talking about masks, and, because now it's like CDC is saying you don't have to wear masks, all that other stuff. And I was like, I don't have a problem with masks. When the world was open and I was traveling, especially in Asia, you can wear masks, all this other stuff. And so he was like, you've been to Asia? And I was like, yeah, I've been to Hong Kong, Vietnam, Tokyo, or someplace else. I can't remember right now. But I was, sharing with him about it. And he was like, I love that you travel. He was like, and did you try things? I was like, I didn't try the scorpions on the stick when I was in Beijing. But I was like, I did try a lot of other stuff because it's like, how many times am I going to be in Beijing? I may come back, but if not, like, let me try all the things. And so part of life is not only doing the things that you want, but seeing how other people live, which is why I love traveling, and I can't wait to do it safely again. We make up this earth, and we are all just so wonderfully made, right? And so unique. And it's boring if you talk to someone who thinks like you, eats everything you eat. And, my husband, we're totally opposites. He's the quiet one, right? Unless he really gets to know you. But one thing I love with him, he knows his limits. So we were in the Caribbean, and I couldn't swim at the time. Since I've taken swim lessons, I've still got to keep going. But that's the problem. Like, even though I couldn't swim, I was on jet skis, I was snorkeling, I was like, well, that's one thing. This weight will help me float. But he's just like, dude, you're crazy. But so anyway, I was like, well, they give you this life preserver jacket and all this other stuff. Come in. And he was like, no, Tamika, I'm good. I'll take pictures of you from the boat. I know my limits. And I thought, you know what? It's good. Because again, you've got to be open. But not to where it makes you so uncomfortable that you can't enjoy an experience. So he will try different foods, but he's not getting in an ocean where sharks live and he can't swim. Like, that's just not his thing. And so I respect that. I mean, it took me a moment to really, truly respect it, but I respect it. But so there are different levels to living the life that that's the key, right? That you always wanted to live. Because, from birth, we're taught, and I had great parents. My parents were so awesome. But from birth, we're told, don't do that. You can't do that. Don't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
No, someone else. I remember a high school teacher. I told her I wanted to be a lawyer or a child psychologist. And she told me that I would never be those things. And part of the reason why she told me I would never be those things is because I was Black. And I knew it immediately. And it hurt. And she ended up apologizing the next day, right? And I guess she had a bad day, but she showed me who she was as a person at her core, right? And part of me is always thinking back to that moment, not to hold me back, but to remind me why I always have to do me. Right? So like I tell my good girlfriends, if, I want to do something, like I did this squat challenge, and one of my friends, she was like, I'm not doing that. She was like, I don't want to upset you because I know you're on your fitness challenge, but I don't want to do it. And I texted her back, do you, boo? Yeah. And that is my theme for this year. We're coming off of a year, because 2020 really is still happening. If you don't know it, it's 2021, but we're truly still in 2020. And if nothing else has taught you to do you, boo, 2020 taught us, do you, boo. Like, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to write a book, if you want to have a baby, if you want to, like, climb a mountain, if you want to do whatever, do you, boo. Like, it's time to do it.
I love what you're saying about, like, the story about your husband and the sharks, because I think it's like, you are just kind of the epitome of like conscious choice, right? Like something I talk about a lot is like the action that someone takes is not what's important. Like people will be like, is skydiving fearless? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like what was the intention? Did someone push them out of a plane, or guilt them into doing it, or make because it's really about like the motivation or the intention behind the action. So I love when you're like, if you want to be the best Netflix and chill person out there, go be that, right? It's like, people are always like, well, like binging Netflix is bad. And I'm like, says who? Like says who? It's what's bad. And I don't even really do like bad and good, but like the thing to consider is like, what is the reason that you're binging Netflix? Is the reason that you're binging Netflix because it really relaxes you and you are giving yourself permission? Like you said, you are giving yourself permission to sit down and binge that show on Netflix and you feel great after? Great. If you are binging Netflix, not consciously, but to hide from something else that you're afraid of, that's where to look, and so the binging Netflix, it's just the thing, right? But it's like, what was their conscious choice in doing the thing? And I think that's what you're talking about, even like with your husband, the jet ski is like, look, the boundary is, we all have to set our own boundaries. We all have to do our own thing. And the boundary itself, like us having different boundaries, it doesn't mean anything. It's all about like, did we bring in conscious choice and like being our true selves when we set that boundary, when we did that thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was just like, how boring. He's up on the boat. I'm seeing all this coral and stuff you see on National Geographic. And then I get back to the boat. He's had a great time. He loves music. He had his non-alcoholic fruity drink, and he was happy because his thing is not my thing.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And so, we have to learn these things. And my stepdaughter, I found myself, when I talk to her, I think it's natural that we revert back to whatever we know that we saw as our parents. And it's funny, she was telling me some of the things that she wanted to do. And I was like, well, and this is just going on who she is. I was like, maybe this will be better for you. And then I was like, no, she has to find it herself. Now, I can mold her and kind of encourage her when she wants my input, or if I feel like I need to give my input. But they're constantly, my husband and my stepdaughter are like, stop Oprah Winfrey. They're like, stop motivational speaking us. But it's like hard for me to turn it off. But I've learned, like, let them be who they want to be. So what I preach to other people, I definitely have to do it in my own house, right? And so it's that balancing act of remembering, let people be who they're going to be, and you do you and they'll do them.
Well, there's this other point that I feel like you're making, or at least it's like coming up for me as you're talking about this, and your whole story, actually, everything that you talked about, even like the seat belts and all that stuff, is like, you have this way of like being like, okay, this is a thing that happened. This is a particular circumstance. It is what it is, but I'm not going to create an entire story about this that then dictates my next behavior. Like when you were talking about zip lining, I just think about so many other people who might be like, well, I can't go zip lining. So because I'm over 300 pounds. Okay. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I just have to sit here. And like, you don't do that. You're like, this is a thing. So what else is possible? And you consciously stay there.
And I don't know why that happens. I was talking to a friend recently, and we're the same age. We're in our 40s, and she was talking about a teenage love that she couldn't get over. I'm like, we're going to be 50 in a couple of years. Like, what happened? Like, so for me, I don't have that where I'm stuck. And, I don't know why. I'm grateful for it. And do I have pity parties? Yes, I have pity parties. Do I get down? Do I get sad? People always ask me that. And it's funny. They're like, do you have bad days? I'm like, I'm human. Of course I have bad days. The difference with me is I don't get stuck in those bad days because I think, well, God, if I'm depressed and sad for over a year, that's a year of time that I won't get back. And that doesn't mean that people don't have real problems, right? That they have to deal with. But that is just a part of my coping mechanisms. And I'm really good about, talking my feelings out to myself, to a therapist, or to whoever, my posse people are that I need to help pick me up, because I believe in pity parties. I hate when people tell you, suck it up, buttercup, cry on the inside like a winner. Like, yes, we need those things, but we need to give people grace and be real about them needing time to grieve whatever thing happened to them, whether it's a traumatic experience, an injustice, whatever. People need to have time, or they're just having a bad day. And so we don't give people enough grace to do that. Now, being the positive person that I am, I do like to reinforce that, eventually I'd like for you to come out of that pity party, right?
But I think you giving space to it, because I talk about this a lot too, and I totally agree with you. I think giving space and intentionality around, go have that pity party. Like I say to my clients, I'm like, just go in that bathtub and cry. Just completely break down. Let it all go. Say all the things, right, that are not fair. Get it out. Write it down. And I think even just the allowance of that space actually does propel you back into like being like, okay, like I'm done, and that's what I do with myself. Like something bad happens and I'm like, all right, pity party, break down, just go there, Mallory. And then like, I'll set a timer even sometimes on my phone, and I'll be like, I'm going to have a 10-minute, like full on meltdown. And I just like, and I just like completely, I'm like, this is so unfair, right? Like I say all the things, the timer on my phone goes off, and I'm like, am I done? And like, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, but most of the time it's yes. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm done. And then I just move on. And, different things, of course, need more space for grief and need more space for really going there. And so it's not always going to be a 10-minute timer. But I think sometimes when we are triggered into that, it's like, just you're allowed to be there. And it doesn't mean anything about who you are.
Right. My husband and I have known each other for a very long time. We're one of those people, like, we dated, we broke up for years and came back together years later. And so one of the things, he was just like, I don't understand how you're upset, you get mad, and then you're just fine and you move on. And to him, it's like insane. Like, he's like, that's crazy. But for me, it's lost moments, lost time. And, again, part of that for me is being a cancer survivor and, having to deal with my own mortality, the death of my parents, and, and the work that I do in the nonprofit world, dealing with a lot of death, people who are losing their lives, people who are just, it could go either way for them. And so I want to make my time here count. And even if I'm just binging out on Netflix, to me, that's making, because I'm doing the things that I want to do. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I want to talk about energy, because you were like, I don't know where that comes from, but from my executive coach training, I've been trained around something called energy leadership. And I think actually the framework relates a lot to how you show up. So I just want to tell you like the basic concepts, and then you can be like, oh my gosh, okay. So basically the idea behind energy leadership is that there are fundamentally like two types of energy: catabolic energy and anabolic energy. So catabolic energy is a really draining, resisting, depleting energy. It's like that quicksand, like dread kind of feelings. That's like catabolic energy. Anabolic energy is fueling, inspiring, invigorating energy. It's like where we see worlds of possibility. In catabolic energy, it's like tunnel vision, black and white, judgment. Anabolic energy is like, I talk about it like, it's like going from the tunnel to the prism. Like when we're in anabolic energy, everything is possible. That's where we see joy and connection, and our helper energy comes out. And it's a spectrum. So like in this framework, there's 7 levels of energy. Level 1 being like the most catabolic energy, and level 7 being the most anabolic energy, which is like enlightenment. So people don't like live up at level 7, but it's kind of like those old radios, or like where the lights would go up and down, would flicker up and down. We're constantly moving between these different energy levels. And so everyone experiences catabolic energy, right? We're triggered into stress. Level 1 catabolic energy is like victim energy, right? It's like we are at the effect of our life, and then level 6, which I think is kind of like the highest that people like live in more, is like joy and connection. And like level 5 is like win-win energy. And so I think you're like, and so people have like their natural resonating energy levels, but they can change. I do an assessment with my clients.
I definitely want to do this.
Oh my God. Yeah, we can do it, because my guess is that your natural levels are just really high. You have a ton of anabolic energy. So you're triggered into stress. Sure. Like everybody, you have moments in catabolic energy. What's really interesting. So level 3 on the spectrum, and I'll include some resources below for folks who are like, I need a visual of this, but like level 3 is actually rationalization. And it's often used as a tool to pull us from catabolic energy into anabolic energy. And rationalization, like that word, can go either way in terms of how people feel about it being good or bad. But I think rationalization, when used intentionally, is a tool, and you use it. You're like, okay, I'm feeling catabolic, but like, I don't want to spend my time, like, I don't have time for this. And so you sort of use that as a way to like push you back up into anabolic energy. You were like the epitome of like how this like energy leadership works. And it's just so amazing to like see it in action.
Oh, okay, cool.
What do you think? Like, what about what I just said? Are you like
I
that?
love it. I want to know more about it. I want to like do it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I think you like, and in your book too, you just so naturally walk people through, and I'm holding the book right here and we'll link it below, which it's amazing. So seriously, what are you waiting for? And it's 13 actions to ignite your life and achieve the ultimate comeback. And it is like facilitating a lot of reflection throughout the process, and a lot of sort of growth opportunities. And I think it really naturally sort of aligns with like giving space for like, what does trigger you into catabolic energy? How do you move out of it? And what does it look like for you to live in that anabolic energy? Yeah. And so I think it's beautiful. And I'm curious, like for you, because you talk about energy in the book, it's your number one thing, which I told you I'm obsessed with, because I feel like even me, I'm so guilty of this. I like hide the word energy sometimes in what I do, because I don't want people to think it's like too woo-woo. But you start with it. And I think it's brilliant. And I love it, because I agree that it is the foundation of everything. So tell me, like, from your like work and life, like, what does energy mean to you, and why is it number one?
And it's funny because I grew up Christian and, down south, going to church constantly all the time. And I'm into woo-woo things, right? So I'm very much into energy. I pick up on people's energy. People pick up on my energy, and energy isn't just from people, but also living things. And, people are always just like, but I'm like, stop for a minute and just kind of pay attention to the energy around you. Even if it's just the sun on your skin, your feet in the grass, like just pay attention to what happens to you while you're doing that. But in the book, when I'm talking about energy vampires, I'm really talking about the people who not only suck out, but suck in, right? And so they literally are stealing your energy. And it could be from them just thinking, you're a good person and I want to share some things with you and get your opinion. And then next thing you know, you're like this. Have you ever had a conversation and you left feeling like woof? Those are energy. Those are energy vampires.
Yeah.
And you feel like you don't have anything left to do whatever you need to do, even if it's just having a meal. And so those are energy vampires. Energy vampires are also a lot of times fear leaders. They're fearful of moving forward, in the direction of their dreams. And so if you share your dreams with an energy vampire, you're thinking this is a friend or this is a good coworker and they're going to cheer you along. But if they're a fear leader and an energy vampire, they're not going to cheer you along. And so they're going to project on you and you're going to share this thing, right, that you've been wanting to do. And they're going to share why you shouldn't do it and why it's stupid or why it sounds crazy or why it's too late. That's a big one, right? That it's too late. Even though as humans, we're living longer, we're healthier, right? People will tell you that it's too late for whatever it is that you want to do. Or if you want to shift careers, you're almost made it to your pension and you've worked this good government job or whatever for a very long time. And people say, you can't leave now. You can't do that. And you say, sometimes for whatever reason, we're conditioned to listen to other people because we're seeking permission to go forward. And so that's why you have to really be careful about energy vampires. And if you're anything like me, and I had to learn this the hard way, you can't save an energy vampire. You want to fix them because you're like, my God, like, why are you like this? Who hurt you? What happened to you? Oprah Winfrey has this wonderful book that she's doing right now. The name is escaping me right now, but it's something like What Happened to You? And a lot of times something happened to us and it could be some big catastrophic event or it could be something really tiny that someone said to us, a look they gave, and for whatever reason, we can't shake it. We can't let it go. And we live in this constant, I can't go forward. I can't be, I can't do because of whatever happened to us, right? And so for me, that's all a part of the energy that surrounds us, right? And, part of you living in your light is releasing your energy into the world, right? Letting your energy be fully on. And so when you hear people talk about, I dim my light so others would be okay. So you dim your light so it doesn't shine at its brightest. But I think, what a tragedy that is for us to not shine our light as bright as we could. Now, you want to share the air, right? So you don't want to be the annoying person that's like, me, 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 me. You're sucking all the air out of the room. But you do want to be the person that is living in your light, right? And so when we live in our light, energy vampires, they want the dark. Right? They want the dark. They want to kind of lurk in the background. So when we're out there shining brightly, the energy vampires, they're like, nope, I'm gonna damper it out. I'm gonna, be an eclipse. I'm gonna eclipse that light. And so you have to be careful because energy vampires don't always show, right? Almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing. So you may not initially know that someone is an energy vampire. It could be a loved one. It could be a friend that you've known for years, but maybe they're going through something. So now they weren't an energy vampire previously, but maybe they are now. And so it's okay to acknowledge it, and I'm a truth dealer, right? So you could do one or two things. You could walk away, close the door, or you could say, hey, energy vampire, I see you. Like, stop sucking the life out of me. And it just depends on the relationship and what you want to do. Because people are always tickled by the fact that I say, it doesn't matter if it's a family member. Maybe you can't cut a family member off, which you totally can, but I get it, right? I get it. But you can't cut them back. You can limit their access to you. And that is one of the things I think we don't do enough of, especially in this social media driven world. We don't limit people's access to us. And that is all about protecting your peace when you do that. And so you don't always have to engage in everything. So for me, I always felt like everything needed a response. And part of growing older and wiser and experiencing things in life, you come to understand that everything does not warrant a response from you. I think the Southerner in me thought it was rude, but that is a part of me protecting my peace. Everything does not warrant a response from me. And it's not that I don't like conflict or I don't want to engage in that way, because I'll engage, in something that's conflict if I feel like it and if I need to. But I'm also very okay with walking away from things and not being the winner, right? I don't have to win everything, because in the end I win because I protected my peace.
Yeah, I love that. And you protected your energy, you're Absolutely. Like, look, I think that's just such a critical, I'm going to start talking about energy a lot more. Like, even just after reading your book, I was like, this is such a critical concept for people to understand their energy, other people's energy. And of course, like, if we're having that moment where we're like, okay, they're talking about energy, it's like, you can feel our energy right now. You can feel, how do we know when someone's mad at us, even if we're not looking at them, right? We're getting eyes across the room. How do we know that? Energy, right? There's so many things that we perceive because of energy, but we kind of are blocking ourselves off sometimes from either holding ourselves accountable to our own energy, or like how we are interacting or experiencing energy. And I love the piece around boundaries, because I say a lot to my clients, who are experiencing burnout, right? All they want to do is look at their calendar and time, right? That's all they want to do. They're like, let's talk about how I can fix my time. I'm like, your time is not why you're burnt out. Your energy is why you're burnt out, And if you are spending, I don't care if you're working 10 hours a week, but it's all catabolic energy, you're tired. But if you are working 50 hours a week and it's mostly anabolic energy, you are excited. So it's not about the time, it's about the energy regulation. And I love what you're saying too around access, right? Boundaries, access, influence, all of these things impact our energy. We are sponges, especially for the people who are on here, who are like nonprofit leaders, real strong helper energy. You are absorbing more than you realize.
Yeah, we have to really learn coping mechanisms to protect that, right? And so I felt like 2 years ago, I had to constantly say, I'm not upset with you, because if I wasn't engaging constantly, and people would automatically think I was upset with them. I'm like, I'm not upset with you. I'm just protecting my energy, aka my peace.
Totally.
I'm just not dealing with this foolery that you have going on.
I know. I saw this post the other day that was like, I'm sorry I did not meet the height requirement for your emotional roller coaster. Yeah. And I was like, that.
I love that. and it's not because I don't want to be there for people, because I do. I'm a caring person, but I am. Naturally, I'm a sponge. So I absorb that type of energy, and it just all becomes, too much. And with everything that's going on with COVID, you have to really, really, truly be careful. And so it really is something that I've worked really hard to do, to protect the energy around me so that I can keep going forward, because I got things that I want to do in this lifetime.
Totally. Yes, exactly. And so it's like eye on the prize, but also like the day to day. I mean, I think that's another thing that the way you talk about is so inspiring to me. Is like, yes, move forward, fail fast, keep going, all the things, eye on the prize, have a meaningful life, build what you want to build, and don't do it at the expense of being happy right now. right? It's like those things. And I think in general, you are not a like either or person. You're like a yes and like that. And these things. And I just think that's such a critical kind of piece of the puzzle that people don't often take that step back to sort of reflect on like, okay, maybe I've gone too far towards the dream around this thing because I'm sacrificing my day-to-day experience for it. And again, actually, I don't even want to put that judgment on that behavior. The thing I would say is like, take a step back and ask yourself, do you want to make that choice? Because if you do want to sacrifice your day-to-day right now for that dream, by all means, do you know?
That's what it feels like for me for my weight loss, because it takes up so much time. I'm like, it's like another full-time job. But it's a sacrifice for now. And not because I hate myself, because I want to be healthier. For me, it's like getting off high blood pressure medicine, making sure that I get to maximize this body during this time here. That's what it is for me. And I literally feel like it's worth it. It's worth it to put that investment of time in it. Now, that's where people, this whole hustle thing, we're talking like hustle. And yeah, it's hard now. But there should be things that you're enjoying about that hustle aspect. And I used to be someone that was team no sleep, like all this energy and all these ideas, but we need sleep. We really do need to normalize sleep and, resting and recharging the body. And those are things that could be enjoyable experiences too. Like I got a new mattress, I got some new sheets with an extra thread count. And I was like, what was I doing before? Like, for me, those are those small things that are surprising. Like I knew the sheets would be nice, right? But when I actually got in the bed, I was like, God, this is so glorious, And I had on my little sleep lotion. I sprayed lavender. I like made it a whole thing, right? And that was an enjoyable experience, right? And so those are those moments of joy that don't have to be fleeting, but those are the things that you have to work to have in your life.
So first of all, I did the same thing during COVID. I was like, okay, we are not paying for hotels. So I am turning my bedroom into a hotel room and I'm just going for it. Yes. I mean, but how do we know? I mean, I think, you talk about it's okay to reflect in your book, which I love. And I love that you use actually that sentence, like it's okay to reflect, because I think, just like with hustle culture, I feel like we're being taught these like two ends of the spectrum, right? Yeah. It's like hustle culture, self-care. And, balance isn't a word that I have always like adopted because I'm not sure what I think about balance from a value perspective for me personally, but I do think, I think about self-care and I'll work a lot and people will be like, I'm really worried about you. Like you have a 2-year-old, you're working way too many. And I'm like, I am so happy. Like I love my job. I am loving, like for me, being a mom is energizing. Like I think the balance, but I think like the being a working mom and having a toddler is actually helpful for me because when one of them is a bad day, usually, fingers crossed, the other one isn't. So it helps me actually, as opposed to creating a story that like, it's so hard doing both, right? I'm like, okay, well, what are the ways that it actually serves me to be doing both?
We need to hear more stories like this, because what I heard over and over again, you're so happy, which tells me that you're fulfilled, which tells me that you're living your dream, which tells me that when you wake up in the morning, you have joy in your heart. There are some people that wake up and they dread the day, that not just that it's a Monday, they're dreading every single day. I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I made it another day. Like, thank you.
Here I am.
but I love that. Like, it's okay to go after the things you want and have a 2-year-old, right? I love that. We're seeing more and more people be okay with not having children, and that's fine if you don't want children. But we also see an uptick in people not wanting children because they've been told that you can't have both, that you can't be fulfilled in your career and have a family. And that's simply not true, because it can be whatever you want it to be. It can, you make it balance. You make it work out for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? They think they can't have it because of a bunch of stories that we've been told and because of a bunch of guilt they're worried about having. And I said to someone yesterday, I said, in my 2 years of motherhood, which I know I'm still very early, but like I've never felt mom shame. Ever. Yeah. And I've certainly had people say things to me that could make me feel that. You know, people hear, oh my gosh, your daughter's in daycare from 8 to 5 days a week. Don't you wish you had more time with her? Like, is your goal to have it be 3 days later? And I'm just like, no. It's not. And you know what? She loves her daycare. She loves her friends. She wakes up talking about them. She is so happy there. And I'm showing her what it looks like to build whatever life you want. And
you're also showing her what it means to socialize with other people.
Totally. But I hold no beliefs around that. You know, I hold the belief that the happiness of the entire family is what's most important. And so that, like, you're right, like keeping joy front and center, keeping happiness front and center really does help create intentionality around actions. And it does take that reflection to say, what does bring me joy? What does make me happy? If I did that thing, would I be happier? And so I just love that.
And how many stories have we heard that, you know, I remember my mom always working and just not happy. I remember my mom or my dad, you know, just going to work and just not happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your daughter's going to remember you were happy. You are happy. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's important, you know, having a life fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure that's for your stepdaughter too. Seeing you that way is what allows her to dream, you know, to be like, I can, you know, try these things or do these things, but you know, that's going to be sort of her North Star in that process too.
And that's exactly what I want her to have. I want her to always feel like she can have it. And, you know, you hear this thing like you can have it all, but not all at the same time, or what you can do whatever you want, however you make it, that it works for you, because what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for me. What works for me isn't going to work for you. But if we can inspire each other to say, you know, like, yeah, you can have a 2-year-old and still be happy and do your things and be a good mom. Or, yeah, you can, you know, not be able to zip line because of weight limitations, but you can go and do this or whatever in the jungle. Like, you just figure it out, and we share our stories. And when we and I'm always big on sharing your story. And a lot of times people think, I mean, share what big amazing thing that you did, and that's not what I mean. I mean, if we're all in this social media experience and everything else, share aspects of your life so that we all can see what could happen. And because we learn from the bad, but we also learn from the good too. And in more ways, we're inspired by the good things that happen in people's lives.
Yes. Okay. We could talk forever. I want you in a moment to tell folks where they can find you. And I hope for everybody who is listening to this, that you are just going to go and hire Tamika as your motivational speaker. And I also just want to highlight that I think
disappointed.
No, I know, we know. I mean, and so I'm so grateful for you sharing your energy and experience and wisdom with all of us. And I just want to highlight too for folks, like, you know, not only speaking about motivation and all these different things, but stigma. I just think you are so inspired. We didn't talk about that today, but that's certainly something that you've done in your work. And I've shared your information with a lot of people who I know are looking to talk about and tackle stigma. So I just want to flag that for folks who are listening, like Tamika is your person. Okay, tell us where everyone can find you, and then I'll ask you the last question.
Yeah, so you can find me at TamikaFelder.com on social media. I'm boring. It's at Tamika Felder everywhere. There's no like talkative girl 87 or whatever.
My old AOL password or whatever.
Right. It's just like at Tamika Felder everywhere. And yeah, you can go check out things that I talk about, what I see. I have a YouTube channel. You can see more of my stuff there. And just reach out to me. I love saying hi. Tell me that you watched this and, you know, what you learned about me? What did you learn about yourself? Any aha moments? Because I love people. Like, I'm a people person and I love knowing your story and what makes you tick. So say hi.
Yes, definitely say hi. And then at the end of all of these episodes, I invite folks to share a nonprofit that they want to highlight that we can invite everyone to go check out and give it they can. So
yeah. My favorite nonprofit is the nonprofit that I founded for cervical cancer survivors and thrivers. And it's Survivor, CERVIVOR.org. And, it was created out of my own experience of not wanting to be alone and not wanting anyone else to feel that way. So definitely check us out and let us know what you think. And we're always happy to receive donations. And if you're interested in my book, it is not just for cancer survivors, it's for anyone. And so you can go to Amazon and get it. And, it's a workbook you can write inside, and it's colorful and illustrated. And it's a reminder of all those things that we already know, but we need a reminder to live our lives doing us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I will make sure you have links to all of this below. Thank you so much, Tamika. This has been such a fun conversation.
Thank you.
So grateful for you.
It was great.
You guys, was that fun or what? After this conversation, I literally felt like I could run a marathon. I probably couldn't have done that, but I had so much energy. Why? Because we brought the energy and we wanted you to feel how much your energy can change when the people around you are energized, because you can do that too, right? I love the way that Tamika talks about energy so transparently. It is so important, and it is such a critical aspect of the ways that we lead and fundraise. There were so many tips and tricks that came out of today's episode. So for all the detailed show notes, head on over to malloryerickson.com/podcast. You can also find more information about Tamika there, as well as a link to her website, tamikafelder.com. And if you miss me between episodes, come on and visit me over on Instagram at @whatthefundraising_. Most importantly, thank you for spending this time with us today. I know how busy you are, and I'm so grateful for you and the work that you do to make our world a better place. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.